What's up, everybody, and welcome to Healthy Culture Conversations. My name is Specie with Elevate Experiences. If I look slightly off to the screen, it's because I'm distracted by an image of myself, and that's where the comments and the chat comes in. But we are live on YouTube and Facebook because at Elevate, what we believe in and what our mission is we want to create a healthy company culture for every business in America. And we want to do that through experiences and through great conversations. And so I'm live here bringing value to you. Hopefully it's bringing value to you. And what we're going to do today is we're going to have a conversation with the man, the myth, the legend. We got Daryl Perry II. He is the man with the bow tie. He is like, if there's like a scale of 0 to 10 for how well dressed you are, I'm like a 3.5. And we got my man Daryl rocking the bow tie, who's going to be popping in here in a second. And here he is. There he is. So Daryl,
thank you, Sean.
Yeah, man. I love the guy with the bow tie. It's just so easy to remember. It's a simple tagline. But last time we went live, you brought us onto your LinkedIn Live actually, and we talked about experiences. We talked about company culture, and now I want to talk with you and interview you and flip the script and just hear and add value to anybody that's watching either now live or that will watch this later, and just ask you some questions. But how are you doing, man?
I'm good. Just working this new normal. I usually work about 40% from home. Now it's 100% from home. So it's been a change, but it's been good.
I love it. And for all the viewers out there, did you already have the purple wall there behind you before all of this happened?
Yes, I get that question a lot. This is, we painted a room to be a classroom, and I've taken it over as my office just because I need to be quiet, have some space, and an easy background for Zoom and for video, so I don't have to worry about the green screen effect and all that.
I love it, man. Well, tell all of our viewers a little bit more about yourself, and your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Daryl Perry, the guy with the bow tie. I represent my own firm, the Way of Life Group, which is a benefits consulting firm. So basically, I help people protect people. I don't insure cars and houses and all that. I insure people because the most valuable thing you own is your health and your income. People often argue it's your home, but you don't physically own that all the time. And it's something that your health you always have and your income you always have. And without your income, nothing else exists in your life. So I've been 7 years in the industry, helping people protect their check and different benefits to help a small business attract and keep quality employees, which is especially important considering the status we're going through with COVID-19 and this new unemployment we're facing.
Yeah, it's super important. It's super important now. I love what you said. Like most people think in terms of like an asset is like a physical thing, right? Like my wife and I own our house, which is not technically true. Technically, the bank owns the house, right? And we owe the bank a lot of money. But our income and our health is actually the two most valuable resources that we have. I love how you said that. And for anybody who's watching, Daryl actually has over 21,000 followers on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with him, he said that LinkedIn is definitely the place to go. And tell me more, like, I know that you told us this last time, but how many people can go live on LinkedIn?
It's about, I want to say 4,000 people at this point right now. Went up a little bit. It's probably about 4,000 people out of the 670 million people that have it. Not many have it on LinkedIn.
That's crazy. So 670 million users are LinkedIn, about 4,000 people, including yourself. You're 1 out of 4,000. I love it.
Yep. I got lucky somehow. I think it's because I've been on LinkedIn for about a decade now, starting in 2010. And I'm a big geek, so I play with all the new features all the time. So I guess they said, let's give them a shot.
Nice.
And now I do a show like you've been on. I do a show 3 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week, trying to help educate people on different matters of, insurance or just business in general. It's really not that much about insurance. Most of it's just business education.
Business education. That's amazing. So they can check you out on LinkedIn. And I know that you also have a podcast, correct?
Yeah. So the LinkedIn show is converted to a podcast. So basically I'll go through the live video, chop out little pieces of where the internet's messing up or something. And it's a podcast called Business with Benefits. It's Business with Benefits wherever you look for it. So Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google, Business with Benefits. You'll see my face and my bow tie there. And that is the audio version of the video.
Great. That's awesome. I love that. So if they missed the live with you on LinkedIn, they can check it out on podcast. Well, I want to dive straight into this conversation with you. So healthy company culture. we all know that I've been talking a lot about company culture as if it's like the mental health of the organization, right?
Yep.
So mental health has always been there. It's just not always been talked about as prominently as it is recently. Like the way to be healthy in the 60s and 70s was to go jogging and to exercise. And then it evolved into jogging and exercise and diet, right? And then now, of course, we're being brought to light for our own physical health. It's diet, exercise, and mental health is kind of the piece that we're just starting to have conversations around within the last decade, 15 years or so, right? And company culture is a lot like the mental health of the organization. And we were chatting right before we went live here, and we were talking about this new world of work, right? There is never going to be a pre-coronavirus or a pre-COVID-19 anymore. It has hit our world. It has changed our world, and we all have to deal with it for better or worse. So what I'd love to ask you is, when we were talking before, you mentioned this, that companies all over the world talk about their employees as their most valuable resource. You talked about like the person individual, their most valuable asset they have is their income and their wealth. You already shared that nugget of information there, or their health, right? And so with the company, their most valuable asset is their employees. How should we be navigating taking care of employees now that coronavirus has hit? It's here to stay. Like there's new things that we have to deal with as employers, as employees even, and as companies. So how can we be taking care of people?
Well, a big thing about that is the risk factor. I mean, let's face it, like Georgia reopened, but a lot of employees don't feel comfortable going back
Okay.
because they're saying, hey, if I get sick and I'm out of work for another 8 weeks because I got COVID, how do I deal with it? Or they're saying, if I get sick, I can't see a doctor. I don't have access to care some kind of way. So a big thing is providing tools for them. And most people, when they think benefits, they think a big healthy investment of a couple $1,000s per person is very expensive. There are several ways to help your staff for low to no cost. And when I say no cost, I mean zero. They actually provide something for them, because for an employee to, let's say they got furloughed from one place that had COVID-19, or they actually had somebody get sick, they're going to think differently when they go to a new employer saying, wait a minute, the last place I worked, somebody got sick, they did nothing for them, so my next place better do something. Or the last place, they made us leave because they couldn't tell if we were sick or something, so the next place I go to, they better have a way for me to check on my health. So that's the biggest thing, to give them something. You don't need to give them the Cadillac plan that you hear about all the time, but give them something as a way to access care, to protect their income, protect their health. That way they'll feel comfortable and they'll go to work every day, not nervous about what's going to happen.
What happens if we don't? Like, what's the alternative? If we don't find this way to give them access, like what are things that are going through their minds? What are some of the trends that you're seeing out there?
Well, basically, it's lower productivity. I mean, I have some employers that are kind of almost begging their employees to come back. So sometimes it's this churning of, I got to beg people to come back. And then when they do come back, they're distracted because they're worried about, I need to get a health insurance plan ASAP because you guys don't have one. Or my sister's in the hospital now and my kid is, or something. And they're always distracted. The other thing, too, is it's going to create a problem in the future, because think about the companies that don't do something during this crisis will look different to an employee. So let's say unemployment is 15%, 20% right now. A lot of people looking for a job. They're going to pay attention to the webpage and the social media updates to say who's actually doing something positive in response to this, and not just saying we're closed, come back when we're clean. They're going to look at that. So when they have to hire employees, they're going to have a harder time attracting that quality employee versus getting whoever's out there, because they didn't take a good stance on, let me be the one getting ahead of this. Let me do something different to help make this more comfortable. So that way, in years to come, people will remember March through July or whatever this time frame is for COVID-19. They'll remember back in 2020, you guys did this, so I want to work here. Or back in 2020, you didn't do anything, so I don't want to come work for you. And that's the, ahead of the game they got to think about down the line.
Have you seen this show up in any businesses of what you're talking about previously, with something that's pre-corona in some kind of way that relates to this?
Oh yeah, I've had employees, like, basically when I write benefits for companies, I usually get a one-on-one relationship with the employee. So they'll have my phone number, my email, something like that. So they've actually contacted me, say, hey, I'm not going back. And I'll say, okay, well, unfortunate to hear that. What happened? Well, I got sick and I had to deal with all these medical bills on my own. They didn't give me the right kind of coverage. I appreciate the one thing that they gave through you, but they didn't give me what I needed. So I've actually seen people telling me, yeah, I'm parting ways with this company because of this. Or they're not coming in. They're basically saying, yeah, the owner called me to come back in, but I'm high risk, or I'm African American. In Georgia, we have a lot of hospitalized people that are African American, and they're saying, well, we got health insurance, but I don't have anything to pay me while I'm in the hospital, which is a high risk for me. So they're basically telling them like, I appreciate you giving me my job back, but I'm not ready just yet. So I've actually seen firsthand the employer struggling and the employee trying to figure out how to deal with this.
Okay. So on the flip side of that, what have you seen work really well in businesses now? The workforce is coming back, that we want them to come back. So what is working well, and what communication, or what do people need to be doing, that kind of thing?
So one big thing is you can't over communicate with COVID-19 and all this remote work. I mean, I know you use Slack for your company and a lot of people do things like that. You can't over communicate in this environment. So even my agents, I have them training, I communicate with them daily. So one thing that works really well is communicate with them to let them know what's going on. Don't just shut down and have them in the dark about what's happening. But another great thing is telemedicine. I understand small business is about 92% of all the businesses in the US. So most of them don't have major medical, but they can get telemedicine at either zero cost or maybe even $10 a month per employee to have them have access to a doctor. Because let's face it, the White House even said telemedicine was awesome. And for those that don't know what that is, that's where you video a doctor. And the fact that there's testing is a hard thing to get here in the United States, you can use this video as an option to say, you know what, I have symptoms of COVID. Let me find out if it actually is COVID or I'm being paranoid. And that's worked swimmingly well because it gives them access. Because before, the employee would keep coming to work and they would feel a little sick and they would get no care. And then somebody else gets sick and then somebody else gets sick. So at least with telemedicine, they can talk to a doctor, find out, okay, no, you don't have COVID-19. It's a common flu or whatever it is, but here's a prescription. Go to Walgreens and pick it up. That keeps that employee away from work. That lets them get a doctor note to give it to their employer to show, hey, I actually talked to a doctor. I am sick. Here's my doctor note. And it helps prevent everybody else from getting sick because there's this badge of honor in the US of, I haven't missed work in 5 years. If you haven't missed a day of work in 5 years, you went to work sick. you had to have gone to work sick. So now this helps people have a way to avoid that problem because they have some access to care to see a doctor on their smartphone remotely, and that way they get the care they need.
That's awesome. Well, the tele-doctoring, what did you call it again?
Telemedicine.
Telemedicine, that's right. Telemedicine is so new. Like, I haven't even personally tried it. Mm-hmm. I haven't. It's just so new to all of us.
Yep.
And so it's a new thing that's just coming out. I mean, I don't know if it's been around for a while. It's just now becoming popular. But when has it started to roll out more streamlined and more mainstream?
It's been around for a while, actually. Just like you said, it wasn't popular. I interviewed Reed Resusman from Fresh Benny's. He runs a telemedicine company since I want to say 2005, I believe it was. And the issue is people just don't use it. That's the main thing. But I mean, with kids, it's a huge time saver. Instead of sitting in the ER 2 in the morning, you whip out your phone, show them, hey, my kid's sick, what's going on? It's a huge time saver. But the other thing that's beneficial about it is people feel more comfortable having to do it at home versus having to put on their Sunday best to go to the doctor. They can just get their phone or tablet and do it that way. But that works very well coupled with income protection. A lot of places aren't offering short-term disability or some kind of an income protection, which is what's shown through this Paycheck Protection Program. The U.S. freaked out when people couldn't work for 2 weeks because they have no income coming in. And some people, I had one client of mine, he was in the hospital for 5 weeks dealing with COVID-19. So 5 weeks in the hospital, another 3 weeks at home. So basically 2 months, he had no income coming in. So when you think about that, people want to have some kind of way to protect their income to say, you know what, I never really get sick, but, and now that but is very strong because I think we're at 1,700,000 cases right now in the U.S. So with all those many cases, a lot of those people got quarantined, can't go to work, and they're having a hard income shortage. So yes, the company can pay them with the Paycheck Protection Program, but not a lot of people got that money. So if you offer at least short-term disability or something to let the employees choose on their own, to say you can get a portion of your income protected just in case something like this ever happens, and it could be the flu, childbirth, pneumonia, car accident, whatever, it pays you while you're at home getting better. That's been very powerful to help small businesses attract people because a lot of people got burned by this virus.
That's great. That's great. Well, and it's not great that people are getting burned by the virus, but I mean, the advice the information that you're giving us is great. Well, I have two questions about this. Like, if I'm an employer and I'm thinking about this, and it's brand new to me, Or if I'm an employee and I'm hearing advice like what you're sharing about what companies should be doing for their people, how do I even start the conversation? So that's really two questions, right? Like if I'm an employer, a small business owner or a manager or someone that has this kind of decision-making ability, but I want to investigate into it, but I don't even know where to start. What do I do? Like what questions should I ask? Who should I go to? And then on the flip side, after you're done answering that, because I know that'll be a minute, but and I can ask it again later. But my other question is, if I'm an employee and I want to have this conversation without seeming like demanding or seeming to think, how do I just have this conversation? What should I talk about? What should I ask about?
Yeah, perfect. So first thing, there are several different options for healthcare benefits, and one thing that's important, I like to kind of say that I'm an agnostic broker because I don't get any compensation for health insurance. So when I'm talking to clients, my conversation comes from other products that aren't health driven. And the reason I do that, health insurance years ago, I had a customer call me on the eve of Obamacare's closing for enrollment, and the woman had cancer and her husband got laid off. It was like the worst case scenario. So she said, I need to get a healthcare plan. Otherwise, if I don't get the surgery, this cancer will take me out and I'll pass away early. And she was about 51. So from that point forward, I said, you know what? Health insurance is just to help people. I shouldn't profit off of that. So one thing is finding somebody that is going to help you without being married to one carrier, because sometimes they have a relationship with Humana, Blue Cross, whoever. They're going to kind of drive the conversation that way. So I don't get any compensation. It's about what makes the most sense. But the main thing is have a conversation. If anybody charges you just to talk about benefits, it's ridiculous. It just should be a conversation. There's so many tools out there that they can get. So the main thing is just find someone local. You can do online too, but I like local, or at least someone that's open to communication via video. That way they can share documents with you, show you what's going on. Now, as an employee, I totally get, don't be demanding. You don't want to go to your boss like, if you don't give me benefits, I'm leaving this place. That doesn't usually go well. So the idea is saying, hey, a friend of mine just got benefits. What's our strategy for benefits here? I know I took the job without benefits, but are we going to have some in the future? And that's a good barometer to kind of feel out, okay, I can't afford it. And the good thing, like I said, most of the options I provide are low to no cost. There's even different kind of health plans you can get the employer doesn't have to pay for. It just gives them access to the group rate. So once an employer kind of tells the employee, hey, I try to get health insurance, it's too expensive, then they can kind of softball it to the broker and say, hey, I know somebody that might be able to help us at low to no cost. Just be the introduction, because one, that makes you look better for the company because you're the hero, because you brought benefits for everybody, not just yourself. And secondly, it gets you a lower rate. A rate through a company as a group rate is usually cheaper than individually buying health benefits. So it kind of behooves you to bring it up to the owner just to ask the question, hey, what are we doing? But again, as an employer, just find somebody. I mean, I camp on LinkedIn because that's where most owners of businesses go, but Facebook has them, YouTube has them. And just ask somebody like, hey, I want to learn more about benefits. Can you help me with that? Because I don't know what I'm doing. Because studies show about 14% of people can explain health insurance effectively. 14%. So your owner or yourself doesn't really understand benefits. So I always tell people, when you're sick, you see a doctor. When you're planning for retirement, you see a financial advisor. Why on earth do you try to figure out the most important decision when it comes to your health by yourself? Because your health insurance decisions, whether it's the health policy, dental, vision, disability, whatever, affects your whole year and beyond that. So why try to do that by yourself instead of having somebody that's licensed and trained that's been doing it to help you do that?
That's great. That's great. And that's a really important metaphor, analogy, whatever you want to describe it. Like, if something is this complicated and we normally go to other people for advice, why wouldn't you go to someone else that's an expert in that operates that way? That's really important. And I mean, we can even relate that to telemedicine, right? Like, if there's something about our health that we need to figure out, we go to a doctor.
Right.
Because they have that knowledge, they've spent years studying it, they're able to help discern, like, yes, this person says this, but this person says this. That's great. I love that.
It's kind of like me and WebMD too. If you ever Google your symptoms, you're gonna freak yourself out. If you say you get a fever, it's like cancer. My head hurts. I'm dying. Like, no, don't do that. Get someone to help you.
Yes, that is. There's a lot of people out there that need to hear that. I'm not necessarily always that person, but there's a few people that I know that's their first instinct is to go to WebMD, and they always come back. It tells me that I have this, and I'm like, no, you're good.
Yeah, there's too many symptoms that layer with other things to do that. And it's the same with benefits. You can say, I'm a restaurant, I shouldn't get benefits. No, there's several restaurants that have benefits, but if you Google it, it might just say restaurants don't get benefits. So get some help about your specific situation to you.
I love that. I love that. Well, Daryl, this has been an amazing conversation. I've got a couple more questions, more on the lighter side and the fun side for our audience.
Okay.
Once quarantine is passed and things are able to go back to normal-ish, what are you most excited to go and do? Are you most excited for like your favorite restaurant, for a concert, or for a sporting event? Or what's like a large group gathering that you're most excited about?
One, not about me, but kind of about me, is my 2-year-old misses the library. My wife takes
Okay.
her to the library every day. So
Yes.
that's a big one. And she's like, when's the library open? And she's 2, so she doesn't get it. But
Yep.
that's a big one for my daughter's the library. And then secondly, outdoor stuff. I like to go hiking a lot. And sometimes we're kind of not going to certain parks because they're getting too packed, considering we're still having cases on the rise here. So
Yep.
hiking and, outdoor stuff.
That's awesome. I have a 3-year-old, and my wife does the same thing. Once a week, she used to take her to the library, and we'd exchange books. And we have the same library books for the last like 9 weeks now.
Yes. Yep.
And we know them front and back. We've got inside jokes about them all. That's amazing.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, Daryl, thank you so much. For everyone who's watching either now or live or later, the replay, tell them more about how they can find you on LinkedIn.
So easy way, just my name, Daryl Perry II on LinkedIn. Also, if you put the guy with the bow tie, I'm 99% sure I'll be the main one that pops up. And then, and then Business of Benefits. That's my podcast. There's a hashtag Business of Benefits. That's the easy way to find me because all the content's tied there. Our last show we did tied to that hashtag and any future or past episodes. So let my name up there, follow or connect with me, whatever way you prefer. My job is to help you make a sound decision to make insurance easy.
I love it. I love it. Insurance, figuring out that whole world. That's the reason why they have like whole systems dedicated to insurance, and you're someone who can make it easy for us. All right, last question for you. Last question is any closing thoughts or areas of wisdom that you can share with us today?
Just the biggest one is that, for years, people kind of say, I never get sick, I never get hurt, I don't have to worry about that, I've never been in the hospital. That's all changed. The way we look at risk is totally different. So health insurance, for example, a little piece of wisdom for those of you that are looking to get health insurance that don't have it, expect it to go up next year. Now, that happens every year, but expect it to go up more because health companies have gone into their reserves with all the ICU confinement, the surgeries, and all the things happening with COVID, that they're going into their reserves. So rates will most likely go up double digit next year, which I hate to say, but that's just from the inside looking in. That's what I think is going to happen. So one thing is just be open. Look around for different options. When you say nothing ever happens, you can't say that anymore. 2020 was supposed to be this big decade of change and new things, and it's been one of the worst years ever. So with that being said, think outside the box to protect your income and your health. Those two things have been proven to be the most important from the government down in other countries. That's the main two things that were exposed. So at least have a conversation to figure out how to protect both of those for yourself.
That's really great. That's really great. Yeah, I saw this a post on Twitter because we had like coronavirus hit, and then there was like these killer bee things that were hitting, right? And then someone this weekend retweeted, I think it was CNN that tweeted out first, and a comedian retweeted it, and it was how there's been cicadas that have been living underground for 17 years, and all of a sudden millions of them are supposed to pop up out of the ground or something like that, something crazy.
Oh.
Welcome to 2020.
Yeah.
And the retweet was like, sure, why not?
Everything else is going on, why not? Yeah, that's like when Detroit had this massive flood. I don't know if you saw that, or Michigan.
No, I didn't.
They had like this massive, like a 500-year flood kind of deal. Like roads are destroyed. It's just bad, and it's like really in the middle of a pandemic, flood the whole state.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, if you're watching this, or you know anyone you know and love is in Detroit, our heart goes out to them. We'll be praying for them, thinking about them. Daryl, you're the man. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today, for sharing your thoughts and your wisdom with us, and we'll catch you later.
Thank you much.
See you, man.